Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Preimesberger, editor of eWEEK. Thanks for joining us today for the latest version of eWEEK eSpeaks. Our interviewee today is Matt Wyman. He's the Chief Product Officer at Sauce Labs. That sounds delicious, Matt. Where'd you get the name Sauce Labs?
Actually, I think Sauce Labs originally was an acronym for Selenium on servers. So
Really?
we've been around for a little while, and they thought up an acronym. Then they thought SOS probably not the best name, so they went to Sauce Labs instead.
That sounds
So
great. Well, good to meet you in virtuality. And tell me a little bit about yourself, your background.
sure, I have a mixed background, both engineering and product. Most recently, I was over at Circle CI, and then I joined Sauce Labs in January. Very excited to be here.
Great. And what's the business problem? What's the IT problem that Sauce solves at a high level?
At a very high level, Sauce Labs is really one of those early companies to drive continuous testing and really help the larger quality organizations not only build out automation practices, but also get their manual practices up into the cloud and start to adopt CI/CD and move more quickly. And so at the root, we're well bound into the OSS community around Selenium and Appium and helping people build better software.
It's all about agile development. Is that a phrase that that fits here, or is it a little bit more than that, or what?
Well, your process or your methodology is not necessarily required one way or the other. I mean, certainly most of our customers are using some form of agile or lean methodology, but fundamentally, you need to remove risk from your delivery process, and that's where Sauce Labs gets involved. We help you validate the actual software that you're building. Ideally, you're moving quickly. Ideally, you're moving in some sort of pipeline where you're testing every day. But there are companies, for whatever good reason, need to test on longer cycles, and that's fine.
I remember when I first started in IT, I was the managing editor. Well, I had done some consulting work, but I was my first staff job. I was managing editor of Software Development magazine back 21 years ago. And we had articles about 6 to 12 month cycles, in developing software, and, testing and QA and testing again and QA and back and forth. By the time the software came out, it was obsolete. I mean, not really, but close to it.
Until recently, with over-air updates, anytime you were involving hardware, you had long cycles. I think that's one of the big challenges that we're seeing right now in the industry at large is acceleration and how to go about accelerating the software pipeline and how to accelerate delivery and how to ensure that you understand even what's moving through at any one moment, especially when you get to large enterprise companies with so many teams that are affecting your software all at the same moment, all going as fast as they possibly can. Boy, what's the known good set? What's even out there in production?
Right.
And so, yeah, it's a space that's even, it's much broader than just Sauce Labs, right? There's all sorts of new entrants trying to help organizations move more quickly.
Yeah. So it's not just iterate fast, iterate often, make mistakes, fix them, and come back. It's not that at all. This is a lot more deliberate.
A lot more deliberate. It's interesting. The way I think about it, I think there's been a transition over the years. At one point in time, quality was about running large numbers of tests and some sort of mystical, magical perfection. Now it's much more about risk assessment and risk management. And so for any given change, what's the likelihood of that change causing an issue in production?
I see.
And that has caused certainly our platform to change. And we've been moving and really rethinking some of the different elements of the platform to allow people to manage risk as opposed to manage counts of tests.
So are you projecting problems that could occur ahead of time? Is that what it is? And are you using business intelligence, or what kind of artificial intelligence are you using in this? You are using it, right?
We are. So Sauce Labs today really is built around two primary frameworks. One called Selenium, which allows us to do browser automation, and the other one that we helped incubate called Appium, which helps with mobile automation. We've recently added a whole series of new frameworks, Puppeteer and Playwright, Test Cafe Cypress, XCUI test on the mobile side, and some others. But really, those are all about figuring out ways to help people move from manual testing to automated testing. What we've done in the AI/ML space is to take all the output from those tests and start to cohort together where there are common issues that may not be visible to any one team. We call it failure analysis. And it's really exciting. It has enabled organizations to find flaky endpoints when any one team would not have found it, because it's not flaky enough to be visible on one team. But when you start using it across 10 or 15 teams, suddenly it jumps out as being a flaky endpoint. Same kind of thing with the tests themselves. Quite often there are flaky tests that are not visible, and they're just sort of buried in your larger test framework. In fact, from my perspective, longer term vision, it's our goal to help you test less, not to have lower quality. We want your quality to be high. We want low risk, but we want to make sure that we can help you pick out which tests are going to be the most impactful given any change. And so that's one of the roadmap threads that we're driving down at this point. And failure analysis is that big first step for us that's out there.
So it's all about efficiency in testing, not necessarily how much testing or how often or whatever. It's about efficiency.
And it's about maturity, right? Different organizations are at different levels of maturity. And so some organizations are moving from pure manual testing to automation, and that's great. We can support them. Other organizations are moving from automation to efficiency, and so we're helping them. So slightly different capabilities in each area. I mean, it's about the customer challenge, right? Not necessarily about the technology. And so we're enabling that full suite and helping people with that journey.
Can you just give a high-level example of a use case to illustrate how it works in the real world?
Sure. If you are building a checkout flow in your UI, a simple e-commerce example, you want to make sure that e-commerce checkout flow is always working regardless of what experiments you might be running. And so you will build some number of functional tests, potentially in Selenium, that go through and validate each one of the different steps in your checkout flow. You might also use our visuals tool to make sure that the UI looks the way you want it to look, that there aren't any inadvertent gaffes in content, in styles, etc. And you can have that running automatically on every check-in in your CI flow, and we'll flag you if there is an exception, if there's an issue. And then you can take the same thing and do the same on mobile. And so whether you use our emulators and simulators or use a real device, we have a huge cloud of physical devices. You can validate that same e-commerce checkout flow on any given device you'd want on whichever OS version your customers are using. The failure analysis comes in behind that and ensures that if you have some sort of lurking issue in that space that's not incredibly visible, so to speak, to the human eye, we'll tease that out and tell you that, hey, this combination of items or this combination of steps might cause an issue and should be looked at. Okay,
very good. And my last question, Matt, would be, is this a cloud service or is it an on-server type service or both or what?
So it's entirely cloud SaaS driven. However, we've built a fairly large security practice, and we have all sorts of tunnel capabilities. We call one of them Sauce Connect, that allows retail and health and other verticals where PII and other concerns are significant, able to make a secure connection and able to get a secure space for them to run their tests. So it's still all run up in the cloud, but we can work with organizations that have high security requirements.
That's great. Options are always good. No question about that.
Indeed.
On the use case and the type of company involved and the regulations involved. So that's all great. Good, Matt. Thank you very much for your time today. If people wanted to look you up? Is it saucelabs.com or is it some other domain?
Nice and simple, saucelabs.com. Come check it out.
Simple is good. Options are good. Always appreciate it. Matt, CPO of Sauce Labs, thank you very much for joining us on eSpeaks today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
And for everybody following along today, thanks very much and have a great rest of your eWEEK. Thanks for joining us on eWEEK eSpeaks. Go to eWEEK.com to hear more conversations with IT thought leaders.